There was an incident. Nobody warned you about it because no one thought it necessary. You were simply living. You were looking for something in your bag. That was the entire scene. No music swelling, no backlighting, just you, one hand gripping the strap, the other vanished wrist deep into the canvas. Your face arranged into that specific expression of concentrated annoyance that people wear when they are hunting for keys or lip balm or the one pen that actually works. Your mouth was slightly open, not in a posed way, in the way of someone who has temporarily forgotten to keep their face polite for public consumption. You muttered something, probably to yourself, probably about the state of your bag, or the universe, or the specific incompetence of whoever designed the pocket you were currently exploring. And then you found it. Whatever it was. Your shoulders dropped half an inch. You exhaled through your nose. A tiny, private triumph. You straightened up, pushed your hair back with the heel of your hand, and rejoined the conversation as if nothing had happened. But something had happened. Across the room, or across the table, or across the negligible distance of a shared office space, someone else had stopped breathing. Not dramatically, not in a way that would trigger medical intervention. Just a small, temporary suspension of autonomic function while their central nervous system ran a diagnostic check and came back with an error message it had never seen before. They blinked. They looked down at their own hands. They looked back at you. And in the silent, airless chamber of their skull, a thought appeared. It was not a romantic thought. Not yet. It was too early for romance. It was more primal than that. More dangerous. It was the thought that arrives when a predator spots something unexpectedly defenseless, or when an architect sees a load-bearing wall and realizes it could be moved. It was the thought, oh no, that, I want that. And Virgo, here is the part where you are completely, hopelessly, criminally innocent. You did not bat your eyelashes. You did not angle your body toward them. You did not laugh in a pitch you had practiced. You did not touch their arm, lean in close, or deploy any of the thousands of micro-strategies that humans have developed since the dawn of time to signal availability. You were not flirty. You were not even friendly. You were simply operational. You were a person trying to retrieve an object from a bag, and in doing so, you had accidentally triggered a fault line in another human being that will now never fully close. This is the phenomenon we need to discuss. This is the incident that keeps repeating, and you are the common denominator. Let us examine the evidence. Exhibit 2. You were explaining something. It does not matter what. The Wi-Fi password. The correct way to format a spreadsheet. Why the restaurant on the corner is overrated. You had that look. The one where your eyes narrow slightly and your finger comes up, not to accuse, but to punctuate. You were not trying to be charismatic. You were trying to be clear. But clarity, when it is delivered by someone who genuinely believes that the truth is a form of kindness, carries a frequency that bypasses the rational brain and lands directly in the solar plexus. They were watching your mouth. Not because they were thinking about kissing it. Well, not only because they were thinking about kissing it. They were watching the shape of your conviction. The way your bottom lip tucked in when you were searching for the exact word. The way your hands moved in the air, building invisible architecture out of logic and exasperation. And they felt something shift. A structural failure. The beam that had been holding up their emotional equilibrium suddenly groaned under a weight it was never designed to carry. They tried to fight it. Of course they did. They are not an animal. They have self-control. They have a job, a reputation, a carefully maintained persona of someone who does not lose their composure over small things. So they looked away. They checked their phone. They took a sip of water and concentrated very hard on the temperature of the liquid. They reminded themselves of all the reasons why this was a bad idea. You are complicated. You are particular. You have standards that require scaffolding. You are the kind of person who notices when a picture frame is 2 degrees off center and cannot relax until it is corrected. You are exhausting. You are terrifying. You are absolutely not what they need in their life right now, which is simplicity, ease, a smooth surface without edges. And then you looked at them. Just a glance, a checking in glance. Are you following your eyes? Asked. Do you understand? There was no flirtation in it, no lowered lashes. Just the pure, unfiltered beam of your attention, which, when directed fully at another human being, feels less like being looked at and more like being audited by a very thorough, very fair, very interested inspector. You held the gaze for exactly 1.3 seconds. Then you returned to your explanation. But the damage was done. In that 1.3 seconds, they had felt the full wattage of your focus, and their internal monologue, which had been so carefully reciting the list of reasons to retreat, had been reduced to static, white noise, the sound of a radio tuned to a frequency that no longer exists. This is where the thoughts become dangerous, because the human mind, when confronted with something it cannot categorize, does not simply file it away. It obsesses. It picks at the scab. It returns to the scene of the incident and reconstructs it from every angle. And they have been reconstructing, they have been replaying the bag incident in high definition. The way your sweater rode up just enough to reveal a sliver of skin at your waist when you reached deeper into the bag, the way your breath hitched when your fingers closed around the object, the tiny, victorious click of your tongue against your teeth. These are not erotic details, not individually, but assembled in the dark room of their memory, developed in the chemical bath of sleeplessness. They have become something else. They have become evidence. Evidence of a conspiracy they cannot prove, but absolutely believe in, the conspiracy of your existence against their peace of mind. They have started to notice things they actively do not want to notice. The way you always smell faintly of whatever soap you use, which is not a fancy scent, not something marketed with French words and a celebrity endorsement, but something clean and specific that makes them want to bury their face in your neck like a cat marking territory. The way you hum when you are concentrating, off-key, unaware, a private soundtrack that they now find themselves trying to stand close enough to hear. The way you roll up your sleeves when you mean business, revealing forearms that should not be as interesting as they are, performing an action so utilitarian that it feels almost indecent to find it mesmerizing. They have cataloged these observations with the rigor of a scientist and the despair of a mystic. They know it is ridiculous. They know that you tying your shoe, you frowning at a typo, you stirring your coffee with the precision of a chemist, these are not acts of seduction. You are not performing for them. You are not performing for anyone. That is precisely the problem. When someone performs, the audience remains safe. There is a contract. The performer offers a fantasy, and the audience enjoys it without obligation, knowing that the lights will eventually come up and everyone will go home. But you are not on stage. You are in the kitchen. You are in the hallway. You are in the break room, peeling an orange with your thumbs in a way that suggests you have done this 10,000 times and will do it 10,000 more, completely oblivious to the fact that a grown adult is currently watching the oil from the rind shine on your fingertips and experiencing a spiritual crisis. You are not offering a fantasy. You are offering reality. Your reality. Unfiltered, unpriced, unnegotiated, and reality, when it is that specific, that competent, that quietly, devastatingly self-possessed, is the most dangerous substance on earth. They have tried to tell themselves that it is just aesthetics, that you are simply pleasant to look at, like a well-designed building or a nicely formatted document. They have tried to intellectualize it. I appreciate Virgo's efficiency. They tell their friends. They have a very satisfying way of organizing information. And their friends nod, not really listening, not realizing that what is actually being confessed is a state of emergency. Because the word satisfying does not begin to cover it. What they feel when you cross something off a list with a decisive stroke is not satisfaction, it is a hunger. What they feel when you correct a mistake before it becomes a problem is not admiration, it is a craving. What they feel when you look up from your work and say, simply done, is not respect. It is the urge to push every object off the nearest flat surface and see if you would make that same little triumphant sound in a completely different context. The thoughts have escalated. They are no longer safe for work. They have started to imagine scenarios, not the usual ones, not the candlelit dinners or the walks on the beach. Those are too generic, too obviously fictional, and their brain rejects them like a failed password. No, the scenarios that have taken root are specific. They are granular. They are built from the same material as their obsession. They imagine you in their kitchen, not in a silk robe, but in an old t-shirt, reorganizing their spice rack without asking because you noticed the cumin was next to the cinnamon, and that is simply not how the world works. They imagine you looking up from the rearrangement, pushing your hair back with that same heel of the hand motion, and saying, "There, better," with the same tone you use when you fix a spreadsheet. And in this fantasy, the dangerous part is not the t-shirt or the kitchen. The dangerous part is their own reaction. The way they would want to thank you, the way they would want to show gratitude, the way they would want to pin you against the newly organized refrigerator and demonstrate with considerable thoroughness exactly how much better things are when you are in charge of the layout. They imagine arguing with you, not because they want conflict, but because they have discovered that your stubbornness, which should be irritating, has become erotic. They imagine you crossing your arms over your chest, lifting your chin exactly 2 degrees, and saying, "That is not going to work for me," in a voice that allows no negotiation. And instead of feeling frustrated, they feel something else, something that makes them want to push harder, not to win, but to see how far they can go before you push back. To see what happens when your immovable object meets their increasingly desperate force. To discover if there is a version of you that is not composed, not efficient, not perfectly in control. They want to be the exception to your rules. They want to be the glitch in your system. They want to be the reason you finally lose your composure. And Virgo, you have no idea. This is what makes it so dangerous. You are not even trying. You are not sending signals. You are not leaving breadcrumbs. You are not deploying the ancient, proven technologies of attraction. You are simply existing in your own skin, operating according to your own internal logic, and the result is that someone else is currently undergoing a complete system failure. They are trying to maintain their professionalism. They are trying to keep their distance. They are trying to remind themselves that you are probably not interested, that you have never given any indication of interest, that your behavior toward them is identical to your behavior toward the houseplant and the mail carrier and the barista who makes your coffee. You treat everyone with the same focused, fair, slightly exasperated competence. There is no special category for them. They are not singled out. They are not chosen. They are simply in the blast radius of your personality, and they are discovering that the blast radius is fatal. They have started to behave strangely. You may have noticed, or you may not, because you were probably busy noticing that the stapler was out of staples, but they have developed new habits. They find reasons to be in your vicinity. Not obviously, not in a way that would hold up in court, but they are there. When you go to the kitchen, they suddenly need water. When you mention a restaurant, they have been meaning to try it. When you are cold, they are mysteriously carrying a sweater. They have become a satellite in an orbit they did not choose, pulled by a gravity they cannot see but absolutely feel. And the worst part, the most dangerous part, is that they are no longer sure they want to escape. They have thought about telling you. Of course they have. They have rehearsed the conversation in the shower, in the car, in the dark at 3 in the morning. They have tried out lines. I think we have chemistry. Too generic. You drive me crazy. Too cliche. Do you have any idea what you do to people when you are just being yourself? Too exposing. Every script they write ends with you looking at them with that same clear, analytical, completely unflustered expression and saying something devastatingly kind and final. Oh, I am sorry. I did not realize. I do not feel that way. And the fantasy collapses, not because rejection is the worst outcome, but because your gentleness in delivering it would be so sincere, so free of malice, so completely devoid of the game they have been playing in their head, that they would have to face the truth. They invented the whole thing. They took your ordinary, everyday, non-flirty existence and turned it into an epic. They cast you as the object of a desire you never auditioned for. And the shame of that, the sheer mortifying self-indulgence of it, keeps their mouths shut. But the thoughts do not stop. They have become background radiation, constant, invisible, until they are measured. Every time you walk into a room, the Geiger counter spikes. Every time you leave, there is a half-life of longing that takes hours to decay. They have calculated the exact number of steps it takes you to get from your desk to the exit. They know your coffee order by heart, not because you told them, but because they have watched you order it 17 times and memorized the pattern. They have a mental file on your preferences that would embarrass them if anyone ever found it. You do not like the cold. You do like the window seat, but only if it is not direct sunlight. You prefer pens with blue ink. You always check the expiration date on yogurt. You once said that you find small talk physically exhausting, and they have treasured that confession like a holy relic, using it as an excuse to never subject you to idle chatter, which means they never get to talk to you at all, which means they spend their evenings replaying the 3 actual conversations you have had, like a cinephile studying a masterpiece. And now we arrive at the dangerous part, the part where thought becomes intention. It happened last Thursday, or Tuesday, or some other ordinary day that should have passed without incident. You were tired, not performing tiredness, not the theatrical yawn and stretch that some people use to invite sympathy, just tired. The real kind, the kind that makes your shoulders sit lower and your voice softer and your defenses thin enough to let something true slip through. You were not trying to be vulnerable. You were not trying to be appealing. You were probably trying to finish a task so you could go home and not think about anything for 8 hours. And they saw it. They saw the crack in the marble. The human being underneath the efficiency, the person who also gets exhausted, who also wants to give up, who also needs occasionally to be taken care of instead of being the one who takes care of everything. And something in them broke, not broke open, broke off. A piece of their restraint sheared away, like ice calving from a glacier. They felt a surge of feeling so intense it was almost violent. Not desire, though desire was there, humming underneath like a power line. It was protectiveness. It was possession. It was the dangerous, ancient, completely uncivilized urge to step between you and the rest of the world and say, no, not today. She is done. He is done. They are off duty. Come back tomorrow. They wanted to carry your bag. They wanted to drive you home. They wanted to draw you a bath and sit outside the door like a guard while you soaked until the water went cold. They wanted to feed you something you did not have to cook. They wanted to make the world quiet enough for you to sleep. And they wanted, with a ferocity that scared them, to be the person you reached for when you woke up. These are the dangerous thoughts, the ones that have nothing to do with flirtation and everything to do with permanence, the ones that do not ask, can I have you for a night? But instead demand, how do I become the reason you sleep soundly for the rest of your life? They are no longer interested in the game. They are not interested in the chase, the dance, the delicate negotiation of modern attraction. They have moved past all of that. They are now in the territory of blueprints, of 5-year plans, of imagining your toothbrush next to theirs and finding the image so deeply satisfying that they have to sit down. They are imagining arguments about thermostat settings and feeling genuinely excited about it because the idea of you being there to argue with is preferable to 1,000 peaceful nights alone. They are imagining you in their space, not as a guest, but as a fixture, as a fact, as something that would require a complete architectural redesign of their existence, and they are ready to hire the contractors. And still, you remain oblivious. Still, you continue your campaign of accidental devastation. Still, you answer emails with bullet points and reorganize shared spaces without being asked, and pronounce judgment on bad coffee with the authority of a hanging judge, and every single mundane, non-flirty action is another drop of water on the stone of their resolve. They are eroding. They are crumbling. They are one more there, better away from showing up at your door with a list of reasons why you should let them stay, and none of the reasons will be about passion. They will be about you, about the way you make the world make sense, about the way your competence is a form of care, about the way you do not even have to try to be the most interesting person in the room, because trying would imply effort, and effort would imply performance, and performance would mean you are not real, and your terrifying magnificent reality is the entire point. So here is the situation. You have a choice, though you do not know it yet. You can continue to be exactly as you are, continue to not flirt, continue to be focused, particular, slightly exasperated, completely authentic. Continue to retrieve objects from bags and correct formatting errors and hum off-key while you work. And in doing so, you will continue to be the unwitting architect of someone else's emotional demolition. You will continue to inspire dangerous thoughts simply by existing. It is not your fault. It is not your responsibility, but it is your effect. Or, and this is the option that requires you to do something you have never done before, you could look up, you could notice, you could see the person who is currently trying very hard not to stare at your hands while you peel that orange, and you could acknowledge with a tiny fraction of the awareness you usually reserve for spotting typos that they are in distress, that you are the cause, that the dangerous thoughts are not a threat to you, but an offering. A messy, overwhelming, completely sincere offering from someone who has been trying to resist you and has discovered that resistance is not only futile, but undesirable. You do not have to flirt back. That is not what they need. What they need is a signal, not a green light, not an invitation, just a sign that the door is not locked, that the wall you did not know you built has a gate, that if they were to approach you with the truth, the ridiculous, vulnerable, dangerous truth that you have colonized their imagination without even trying, you would not look at them with confusion or pity. You would look at them with that same clear, focused, devastatingly fair attention you give to everything else, and you would consider them, actually consider them, not as a problem to be solved or a variable to be managed, but as a possibility. If you are willing to entertain this possibility, if you are willing to admit that your non-flirtiness might be the most potent form of attraction ever discovered, then do this. The next time you see them, hold the eye contact for 1.4 seconds instead of 1.3. Let your mouth close a fraction slower after you finish speaking. Allow one corner of your lips to acknowledge not the world, but them, that you see the demolition you have caused and you are not calling the authorities. That is all. That is the entire signal. It requires no batting of lashes, no strategic touching, no practiced laugh, just a microsecond of permission, a nanometer of openness. And then watch. Watch what happens when a person who has been trying to survive your accidental onslaught finally receives the smallest indication that the ground they are standing on is not about to give way. They will not rush you. They are too smart for that, too cautious, too aware that you are not a person who appreciates being rushed. But they will approach slowly, carefully, with the same precision you bring to organizing a drawer. And when they do, they will not use a line. They will not perform. They will simply hand you the truth, wrapped in whatever clumsy language they can manage, and wait for your verdict. If you want that, if some small secret part of you is curious about what it would feel like to be wanted, not despite your particularity, but because of it, then leave a mark, not a comment that says protected or ready or any of the words that have been used before. Say noted, just that, noted, because that is what you do. You note things, you file them, you process them. And this time, the thing to note is that Someone out there is having dangerous thoughts about you, and the danger is not that they will hurt you. The danger is that they will love you so thoroughly, so specifically, so completely without your having to perform a single second of flirtation that you will have to finally admit you were never unlovable. You were just waiting for someone brave enough to survive your reality. Now go. Find your keys, fix the spreadsheet, peel your orange, be exactly as devastating as you have always been, and keep one eye on the perimeter. The danger is closer than you think, and it is wearing a look you have seen 1,000 times without ever recognizing it for what it is. The face of someone who has surrendered completely to the architecture of your ordinary, magnificent, non-flirty life.